everyone, and welcome to tonight's spooky Halloween special terrarium build featuring this cool zombie grandma with a frying pan right here. So for the main substrate layer we'll be using a little bit of aqua soil. I really like using this for my moss terrariums especially. Holds in the moisture really well and it's very clean. Not really sure what happened there. Just giving it a quick spray down with the distilled water helps keep the soil in place. We'll be using just a few spoonfuls of all-purpose sand, just your regular type you get at any hardware store. Just make sure you give it a good clean first. That should be enough. Just going to flatten it down but leave a little slope in the back for height. Also makes a nice platform for this azalea root, which we're going to be using to mimic a tree. This is just a cutting off an old azalea bush which we pulled out of the garden a couple of years ago now. Also I'll be using this little piece of choya wood. I think I'm going to stuff it with moss. So we'll just put the root in upside down like this, so it looks like an old tree, a dead tree, no leaves. Yeah, just like that. Another little piece next to it. We'll just have this in the background. Well, now we've got that in position, we can start to think about adding some moss, a little bit of colour. So to start with, I think we'll start with some pincushion moss, Leucobrium glaucum. It also has some stringy bits in, which is perfectly fine for this project. So I've just broken off a couple small pieces. We'll put a piece on either side just to keep the balance. We won't make it perfectly symmetrical, but we'll try and put a little bit of each moss on either side. Next we'll be using a favourite of mine, maidenhair pocket moss, Physidens adianthioides. We'll put this in the front because it grows really low to the ground, doesn't get much higher than you see here, so it acts as a nice barrier for the foreground. Next I have a stringy piece of many-fruited thyme moss. It's grown this way because it's been in my garage for a lot longer than it should have been. But we're making good use of it now, so its time has come. It's fulfilling its destiny. Because it's the tallest, we're using it as a background plant, so I'm putting it behind the trees, just pulling it forward gently and pressing it down firmly. Next we'll be using a moss that I haven't identified yet. It's been in storage a long time and it looks like this, so I think it'll work. I'm actually going to stuff it inside this piece of choya wood here. So we'll try and create some kind of mossy stump. I think this type of wood really does look a little bit spooky with those type of holes. Just take a little piece off here. I'm just going to roll it up with my fingers and just pop it down the hole with a twisting motion. It's actually quite snug. Well, I'm just going to poke it with this. Actually, I don't think I'm going to need it. It's in there quite well. There's a little worm here. Just popped out of the moss. A little white worm. Can you see him there right at the front? It's a different colour than the rest. Right there. I wish you'd stop doing that. I'm also going to add a couple of pieces of this mystery moss into the terrarium here on the left and the right sides. It's kind of scraggly looking, adds a little bit of extra texture. Alright, so let's pop in as a little warped wood mossy stump here, put it right in the front. And we'll put his grandma in right behind it. Let's get into position. The last material we'll be using is just a spoonful of pea gravel. Not much, just a few bits here and there, then I'll move it around with my stick, just to add a little bit of rocks on the path, again just for texture and detail. It's time for Grandma to meet her final resting place, trapped in this terrarium for all eternity. I heard she murdered her whole family with that frying pan. Each and every one of them smashed their brains in a cast iron skillet. They're all sat around the table one Thanksgiving, being disrespectful. "This is disgusting," they said. "Why'd you even bother?" Well, later that night she had enough. While they were all resting, smashed their brains in. And that was that. Every year, This says she comes back to the woods outside of the house waiting for people to taste her food.